Hey guys, tonight we are slipping back in time, pulling on a coarse, scratchy uniform to explore what life was really like for a Victorian servant. You will be starting at the very bottom, a new arrival in a grand house where your own name is less important than the polish on the silver. We'll feel the chill of the pre-dawn attic, the heat of the kitchen, and the crushing weight of a 14-hour workday. Forget the romanticized television dramas. The reality was a relentless grind of cleaning, carrying, and being utterly invisible. Honestly, given the working conditions, the questionable food, and the constant threat of dismissal for the tiniest mistake, you probably won't survive this. But we can dream, can't we? This is the kind of relaxing educational content that lets you appreciate your modern mattress and the glorious fact that you don't have to empty anyone's chamber pot tomorrow morning. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. As always, I love to see how far these stories travel, so please drop your location and what time it is where you are in the comments below. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. A sound, thin and sharp, slices through the darkness. It's not a bell, not yet. The bells will come later, a jangling chorus of demands that will orchestrate your entire day. This is something else. A scraping, a rustle, a sigh from the other side of the narrow room. It's the sound of another human being stirring, and it's your only alarm clock. Your eyes crack open, gritty with sleep you feel you only just fell into. The blackness isn't total. A sliver of watery grey light leaks in from a single, grimy pane of glass, high on the slanted wall. A window that seems more like a theoretical concept than a functional object. It doesn't open, of course. Fresh air, particularly the dreaded night air, is considered by many to be a carrier of disease. A miasma of invisible poisons just waiting to creep into your lungs. So the air in here is thick, stale, and smells faintly of damp wool, old dust, and the three other girls crammed into this attic space with you. You're the new girl, the one who arrived just 2 days ago, still dizzy from the train journey and the sheer, bewildering scale of the London townhouse. You lie still for a moment on your pallet. It's a thin mattress stuffed with something lumpy and unforgiving, straw, maybe, or, if you're unlucky, horsehair that has decided over the years to form a single, solid lump in the middle. It feels less like bedding and more like a collection of rocks someone has generously covered with a sheet. A thin, grey blanket, worn almost smooth with use, is all you have against the persistent chill that seems to radiate from the bare floorboards and the uninsulated roof just above your head. You can already feel the cold seeping into your bones, a damp, penetrating cold that the weak warmth of your own body can't fight off. This is your new home, or more accurately, your new lodging. A home implies comfort, a sense of belonging. This is just the place where you are permitted to sleep when you are not working. You share it with Sarah, a scullery maid whose snores are a powerful force of nature, with Jane, the third housemaid, who coughs quietly through the night, and with another girl whose name you haven't quite caught yet, who seems to exist in a permanent state of silent exhaustion. Privacy is a concept as foreign here as a hot bath on a Tuesday. Your uniform is folded neatly on a small wooden crate beside your bed, the only furniture you can call your own. It's a simple, practical garment of dark blue print cotton, with a crisp white apron and a small cap to cover your hair. Fashion is not the goal. Function and the erasure of your individuality are. When you put it on, you are no longer you. You are a housemaid. It's a costume for a role you must now play flawlessly. You think back to the hiring fair, the reason you're here. It was a chaotic, humiliating affair, standing in a line with dozens of other hopeful girls and boys in the town square, while prospective employers walked past, inspecting you like livestock. They'd check your hands for roughness, your teeth for decay, and ask blunt questions about your strength and your character. Historians still debate the degree of real choice young people like you had in these situations. For some, it was a path chosen for the security of regular meals and a roof over their heads. For you, with too many mouths to feed back in your small rural cottage, it felt less like a choice and more like the only option that wasn't starvation. Your mother had cried, pressing a small, worn coin into your hand. Her parting words a mix of hope and fear. Was this truly a step up from the poverty you knew, or just a different kind of cage with more polished bars? That question hangs in the cold air as you swing your legs off the pallet. The floorboards are like sheets of ice against the soles of your bare feet. You learn quickly to move in the dark, your hands brushing against the rough plaster of the wall for guidance. You don't dare try to light a candle. They are a luxury you are not afforded, and a fire hazard that could cost you your position instantly. The senior servants, the butler and the cook, have them, of course. But for you, it's darkness. You find the small washstand in the corner, a simple wooden structure holding a large ceramic pitcher and a heavy bowl. The water in the pitcher is frigid, and a thin film of ice might even greet you on the coldest mornings. You pour a small amount into the bowl, the splash echoing loudly in the stillness. You wash your face and hands quickly, the shock of the cold water, a brutal but effective way to banish the last remnants of sleep. There's a single, shared piece of coarse soap smelling faintly of lye. It leaves your skin feeling tight and dry. You clean your teeth not with a brush and paste, but with a finger and a dab of soot from the fireplace. A common practice that seems strange and dirty, but it's what's available. You dress quickly, your fingers fumbling with the buttons and ties of your uniform in the gloom. The fabric is stiff and unfamiliar. You tie the apron strings tightly around your waist. This apron is your shield, the primary defense against the dirt and grime that will be your constant companion for the next 14 to 16 hours. Jane is coughing again, a dry, rasping sound that makes you wince in sympathy. Sickness is a constant fear here. If you can't work, you are useless, and a useless servant is soon a former servant, cast out with no reference and nowhere to go. So you ignore the sympathy, ignore the cough, and focus on the task at hand. Getting downstairs before the first bell rings. To be late is a cardinal sin, an offence that will earn you a sharp reprimand from the housekeeper and the contempt of your fellow servants, whose own work is delayed by your tardiness. You are a small cog in a large, intricate machine, and the machine must run on time. You take one last look around the dark attic, your world now reduced to this small, cold space. The sliver of grey light is a little brighter now, promising a dawn you will not see. Your day will be spent in the cavernous, gaslit belly of the house. Your life is no longer your own. It belongs to the bells, to the grime, and to the unseen family sleeping soundly in their warm, soft beds just a few floors below. You step out of the attic room and onto the narrow landing. Here, the darkness is even more profound. The servants' staircase is a treacherous thing, a steep, winding tunnel buried in the guts of the house. It feels like a deliberate architectural insult, designed for function over safety, with no thought for the young women who would have to navigate it in the dark, their arms laden with buckets of coal or sloshing water. You place a hand on the cold, slightly sticky wall and begin your descent, your bare feet learning the personality of each stair. This one creaks, that one is slightly canted to the left. You are moving through the house's secret passages, the network of corridors and stairs that allows the servants to move about without ever being seen by the family. It's a world away from the grand, carpeted main staircase you glimpsed on your first day, a river of polished wood and gleaming brass rods that flows gracefully through the heart of the home. Your staircase is more like a cramped, vertical mineshaft. As you descend past the third floor, where the children and the governess sleep, you hold your breath. The silence is absolute. Does the house feel like a sleeping beast you're trying not to wake, or a tomb you're bringing back to life with your own weary breath? The answer changes with every creaking floorboard. Your first destination is the great nerve center of the house, the kitchen. It's located in the basement, a vast, cavernous space with a stone flag floor and a low, arched ceiling. Even in the dark, the air is different here. It's cooler, with an underlying smell of old grease, boiled vegetables, and the faint, metallic tang of the black lead used to polish the colossal cooking range. This range is your first and most formidable opponent of the day. It's a monster of cast iron, a complicated beast with multiple ovens, warming drawers, a water boiler, and a wide firebox that consumes coal with a ferocious appetite. For now, it is cold and silent. Your job is to resurrect it. First, you must rake out yesterday's ashes. You crouch down, the stone floor leaching warmth from your knees, and open the iron door to the firebox. A cloud of fine grey dust billows out, coating your apron and making you cough. You use a small iron shovel and a stiff brush, scooping and sweeping the cold, gritty remains into a heavy metal bucket. The dust gets everywhere, in your hair, under your fingernails, on your face. You can already feel it forming a grimy layer on your skin. Once the grate is clear, the ritual of firelighting begins. It's a science and an art form you must master quickly. You start with crumpled paper, old newspapers or household circulars, laid carefully at the bottom. On top of this, you build a small, airy pyramid of kindling, small, dry sticks arranged just so, to allow the air to circulate. Get it wrong, make it too dense, and the fire will choke itself out before it even begins. Finally, you add the coal. Not too much at first. You start with smaller, lighter pieces, building up to the heavier chunks that will burn for hours. Then comes the moment of truth. You strike a match, a precious commodity you must not waste, and touch it to the paper. A small flame flickers, catching the edge of the newsprint. You hold your breath, watching as it licks at the kindling, the wood beginning to crackle and pop. You gently blow on the embers, coaxing them to life. Some days the fire catches immediately, roaring into life as if eager to begin its work. Other days, it's stubborn, sulking and smoking and threatening to die out, forcing you to start the whole messy process over again. Today, you are lucky. The flames take hold, and a wave of welcome warmth begins to push back the gloom. But you cannot linger. The kitchen range is only the first of many. You now have to haul the coal and kindling to the upstairs rooms. You fill a heavy scuttle with coal, the metal handle digging into your palm, and begin the long climb back up the servants' stairs. Your first stop is the master's study on the ground floor. You enter the room in utter darkness, moving by memory, your stockinged feet silent on the thick Persian rug. Here, the air smells of leather bindings, pipe tobacco, and beeswax polish. The fireplace is smaller, more elegant, but just as cold. You repeat the process. Rake out the old ash. Build your pyre of paper and wood. Add the coal. As you work, you are acutely aware of the stillness, the quiet opulence of the room. You are an intruder, a ghost of soot and labor in a world of comfort and intellect. You can just make out the shapes of leather-bound books lining the walls from floor to ceiling. It is a world you will never have the time or the education to enter. Historians often debate the true fire risk in these homes. You are forbidden a candle in your attic room for fear you'll burn the house down. Yet your first job is to set a dozen fires in rooms filled with flammable fabrics, wood, and paper, often leaving them unattended to catch. It seems the masters of the house feared a servant's carelessness far more than the inherent dangers of their own lifestyle. After the study comes the morning room, then the grand drawing room. Each has its own fireplace, its own personality. Each requires the same back-breaking ritual. In the drawing room, the fireplace is framed with ornate, polished marble. Here, you must be extra careful not to make a mess. A smudge of soot on that pristine white marble would be a disaster. After lighting the fire, you take out a tin of black lead paste and a soft brush. This is the polish for the cast iron grate. It's a waxy, greasy substance that smells faintly toxic. You have to rub it into every curve and corner of the ironwork, then buff it to a high shine. It's filthy work. and the black paste gets deep into the creases of your skin, a stain that will take days of harsh scrubbing to remove. It's a point of pride for the housekeeper, a sign of a well-run house. For you, it's just another layer of grime. By the time you've lit the fourth fire, your back aches and your arms feel heavy, and the day has barely begun. The family is still asleep, blissfully unaware of the labor that goes into creating the effortless warmth they take for granted. They might as well believe a team of helpful elves does it overnight. You are that elf, and your magic is coal, soot, and aching muscles. With the downstairs fires crackling to life, your focus shifts back to the kitchen. The warmth from the newly lit range is beginning to fill the space, a small comfort in the vast, stone-flagged room. Now you must face the consequences of your fire starting, the mess. The stone floor in front of each hearth, both here and upstairs, is dusted with fine grey ash and stray bits of soot. Your next task is to fetch a bucket of warm water from the range's boiler. Get on your hands and knees and scrub the hearthstones clean. The water is not truly hot yet, just tepid, but it's better than the icy water from your attic pitcher. You use a stiff bristled brush and a coarse cloth, working the grime out of the stone. Your knees ache against the hard floor, and the damp seeps through your uniform. This is a recurring theme of your day. One task creates another. Lighting the fires creates ash, which requires cleaning. Later, cooking will create grease, which will require more scrubbing. It's a cycle of dirt and toil that never truly ends. You are not just cleaning up yesterday's mess, you are cleaning up the mess from 5 minutes ago. Once the hearths are clean, you finally get to meet the queen of this underground kingdom, the cook. She arrives as a whirlwind of authority and purpose, a stout woman in her 50s with a permanently flushed face and flour dusting her eyebrows. She doesn't say good morning. She assesses the state of her range with a critical eye, checking the temperature of the ovens with the back of her hand, and gives a non-committal grunt that you learn to interpret as approval. Mrs. Higgins, the cook, is a figure of immense power in the servants' world. She reports directly to the mistress of the house and rules the kitchen with an iron ladle. Her temper is legendary, her standards impossibly high. She can make your life a living nightmare, or, if you prove yourself competent and obedient, a tolerable existence. The butler may rule the formal upstairs world of the house, but the kitchen is the cook's undisputed territory. Your happiness, and indeed the quality of the food you get to eat, depends entirely on staying on her good side. As the newest and lowest ranking maid, your place is in the scullery, the small damp annex off the main kitchen where the washing up happens. Today, your first task for the cook is to prepare the vegetables for the day's meals. She points to a mountain of potatoes in a wicker basket. "Peel them," she commands, her voice raspy from years of shouting over sizzling pans. "And don't be taking half the potato with the skin, mind. The master won't pay for waste." You carry the heavy basket to the scullery. It's a grim little room with a large stone sink, a wooden draining board, and a perpetual smell of damp and decay. There's a single small window, set high in the wall at ground level outside, its glass so thick with grime that it lets in more gloom than light. You can see the feet of people walking past on the street above, a strange, disembodied reminder of a world you are no longer part of. You pull up a small wooden stool and set a bucket between your knees, picking up a small, sharp knife. And so you begin. Peeling potatoes is monotonous, soul-destroying work. Your hands are cold and stiff, and the knife is clumsy. You try to keep the peelings thin, mindful of the cook's warning. Each potato is a small victory, a tiny piece of progress in a seemingly endless task. While you work, another servant arrives. Sarah, the scullery maid you share an attic with. It is technically her job to wash the endless tide of pots and pans, but as the new girl, you are everyone's assistant. She gives you a brief nod and immediately sets to work, filling the massive sink with water heated on the range. The clash and clang of her scrubbing the heavy iron pots becomes the soundtrack to your morning. You work in silence, a silence born not of companionship, but of exhaustion and the strict, unspoken rules of the kitchen hierarchy. You are at the bottom, and you speak only when spoken to. Your mind wanders as your hands perform the repetitive motion. You think about the sheer quantity of food this house consumes. Historians often discuss the Victorian diet, but from your perspective, it's a matter of astonishing volume and complexity. The family upstairs will eat a breakfast of porridge, eggs, bacon, kippers, toast with marmalade, and tea. Lunch will be a multi-course affair, and dinner even more so. All of it starts here, with raw ingredients and hard labor. The amount of waste is also staggering, a concept debated by scholars who study household accounts of the era. While you are carefully shaving the thinnest possible peel from a potato, you know that entire plates of food will be returned from the dining room barely touched, destined not for the servants but for the bin. One of the oddest jobs that falls to the junior maids is knife cleaning. After being washed, the steel knives are not simply dried, they must be polished. This is done using a machine called a knife board or, in grander houses, a rotary knife cleaner. It's a wooden board covered in leather, which is coated with a fine abrasive powder called emery or crocus powder. You have to rub the blade of each knife back and forth on this surface until it gleams. It's another tedious, repetitive task, but one that is considered essential. A smear on a knife blade at the dinner table would be a source of great shame for the entire household. It's a strange, almost ritualistic devotion to cleanliness that seems to permeate every aspect of life in this house. You peel potato after potato, the pile of naked spuds growing slowly in the bucket. Your back is a dull ache, and your fingers are raw. You are just one small part of the great machine preparing the family's breakfast. It's a thankless, invisible job. The family will enjoy their perfectly cooked bacon, but they will never know that your day started hours earlier in a cold, dark attic, and that the simple, clean potato on their plate is the result of your cold, aching hands. Once the mountain of potatoes is conquered and you have received a brief, critical nod from Mrs. Higgins, your real work for the day begins. Your official title may be under housemaid, but your job description can be summed up in one phrase: a never-ending war on dust. The Victorian home, with its heavy draperies, thick carpets, upholstered furniture, and endless clutter of ornaments and knickknacks, is a paradise for dust. And in an age where coal fires are the primary source of heat, soot is a constant, insidious invader, settling as a fine black powder on every available surface. Your mission, which you have no choice but to accept, is to fight it, and you will lose every single day. The best you can hope for is a temporary truce. You are armed with a bucket of tepid water, a collection of rags, and a variety of brushes. There are small brushes for dusting delicate ornaments, long-handled brushes for reaching cornices and picture rails, and stiff brushes for scrubbing floors. You assemble your arsenal and begin your patrol. The daily routine is rigid and unvarying. You start at the top of the house and work your way down, a system designed to ensure that the dust you dislodge settles downwards, to be dealt with on the floor below. So you trudge back up the servants' stairs, your legs already weary, to the family's bedrooms. You are not to enter the master and mistress's rooms until they have gone down for breakfast. You start with the children's rooms. You have to be quick and quiet. The first job is to collect the chamber pots. This is, without a doubt, one of the least pleasant tasks you will perform. You carry the heavy ceramic pots, trying not to slosh them, down the back stairs to an area known as the sluice room or closet, where you empty them into a drain, rinse them with cold water and a splash of carbolic acid, and carry them back upstairs. It's a humbling, malodorous job that serves as a potent reminder of your station. You find yourself wondering, not for the last time, how the people upstairs can live in such elegance while relying on others to perform such basic, undignified tasks for them. With that unpleasantness over, the cleaning begins. You open the heavy curtains to let in the morning light, and the sunbeams immediately illuminate a swirling universe of dust motes you have just disturbed. It's a pretty sight for a second, until you realize it's your sworn enemy. You start with the furniture, dusting every surface with a damp cloth. This is a key detail. A dry cloth just moves dust around, while a damp one traps it. It's one of the first things the formidable housekeeper, Mrs. Bailey, taught you, her voice sharp and unforgiving. We capture dirt in this house, girl. We don't merely rearrange it. You dust the bedstead, the wardrobe, the dressing table, the mantelpiece. Then you must attend to the ornaments, the countless porcelain figurines, silver-framed photographs, and decorative boxes that clutter every surface. Each one must be picked up, wiped, and replaced exactly where you found it. The family would notice if a single porcelain shepherdess were moved an inch to the left. It's a game of memory you can't afford to lose. An odd and particularly frustrating task is cleaning the Venetian blinds. These slatted wooden blinds are notorious dust traps. You must wipe down each individual slat on both sides. It's maddeningly slow and repetitive work. You develop a rhythm, a mechanical motion of wipe, flip, wipe, move to the next. Your mind goes numb and you focus only on the small section of wood in front of you. This is how you survive the day, by breaking it down into 1,000 tiny, manageable tasks. If you thought about the sheer volume of work ahead of you, the despair would be overwhelming. After the dusting comes the floors. In the bedrooms, you use a carpet sweeper, a mechanical device of rollers and brushes that picks up the surface dirt. Once a week, however, there is a much deeper clean. This involves tea leaves. It sounds bizarre, but it was a common Victorian cleaning hack. Used, damp tea leaves would be scattered across the carpet. The logic was that the damp leaves would cling to the dust and prevent it from rising into the air as you swept the carpet vigorously with a stiff broom. Historians still debate the actual effectiveness of this method, with some arguing it did little more than stain the carpets, while others maintain it was a genuinely useful technique for dust suppression in an era before vacuum cleaners. For you, it just means another heavy, messy job to do. Finally, you must clean the grate in the bedroom fireplace, just as you did downstairs, polishing the iron until it shines. By the time you finish one room, it's time to move to the next, and the next. The drawing room, with its silk wallpaper and forest of delicate furniture, is a minefield of potential breakages. The dining room, with its enormous heavy table and dozens of chairs, is an exercise in endurance. You are constantly on your feet, constantly bending, stretching, and scrubbing. Your body becomes a machine, fueled by a meager breakfast and a fear of reprimand. You learn to see the house not as a home, but as a series of surfaces. Your world is reduced to the grain of wood, the weave of a carpet, the smear on a window pane. You start to take a strange, detached pride in your work. A perfectly dust-free mantelpiece, a gleaming floorboard, a smear-free mirror. These are your small, fleeting triumphs in a day of endless labor. It's a strange and lonely victory, because the true sign of your success is that no one notices you were ever there at all. Your work is only visible when it is not done. Just as you finish polishing the last dining room chair, you hear the distant, urgent ringing of a bell. This isn't the chaotic jangling of the main servant's call board in the kitchen. This is a specific bell, a signal you are learning to recognize. It's the breakfast bell. The family is ready to eat. For you, this means a frantic, last-minute rush to ensure everything in the dining room is perfect, followed by the complex performance art of serving the meal itself. You hurry to the kitchen, where Mrs. Higgins is plating up with the concentration of a field marshal planning a campaign. The air is thick with the smells of sizzling bacon, grilling fish, and hot toast. A huge silver platter is laden with fried eggs, another with glistening sausages. There are racks of toast, pots of jam and marmalade, and a silver urn of coffee. It's an astonishing amount of food for the 4 people who will eat it. You and the other junior maids will get the leftovers, if there are any. Sometimes what's left is plentiful. Other times it's just a few scraps of toast. Your immediate job, along with the other housemaids, is to carry these heavy, hot platters from the basement kitchen up to the ground floor dining room. You use the servants' stairs, of course, balancing the hot plates as you navigate the steep, narrow steps. It's a stressful journey. A single slip could mean disaster. Spilling the master's breakfast on the stairs would be an offense worthy of instant dismissal. You move as quickly and carefully as you can, your heart pounding with a mixture of exertion and anxiety. You place the dishes on the grand mahogany sideboard in the dining room, which has already been laid with a pristine white linen tablecloth, gleaming silver cutlery, and sparkling crystal glasses. Everything is arranged with geometric precision. The head housemaid, or the butler, will have overseen this, ensuring that every fork and every knife is in its exact, doctrinally correct position. There's a proper way to fold a napkin, and then there's the wrong way. Guess which one gets you a tongue lashing from the housekeeper? Now comes the most difficult part of the morning, the art of being invisible. During the meal service, your role is to be a silent, efficient ghost. You stand by the sideboard, your hands clasped behind your back, your eyes fixed on a point on the opposite wall. You are not to speak unless spoken to, which is almost never. You are not to make eye contact. You are to anticipate the family's needs without being intrusive. Is the master's coffee cup empty? You must glide forward, silently, and refill it. Has the mistress finished with the toast rack? You must remove it before she even has to think about it. It's a ballet of silent service, and you are just a beginner. You watch the footman, a senior servant, for cues. He moves with an easy, practiced grace, his face a perfect mask of polite indifference. You, on the other hand, feel clumsy and conspicuous. You are terrified of making a noise, of dropping a spoon, of breathing too loudly. The family enters. The master, a stern-looking man with a formidable moustache, takes his seat at the head of the table and immediately disappears behind his newspaper. The mistress, elegant and cool, arranges her skirts and begins to pour the tea. The two children, a boy and a girl, start bickering in low tones until silenced by a sharp look from their mother. They don't look at you. They don't acknowledge your presence in any way. It's as if you are a piece of furniture, a functional object that happens to be human-shaped. This is one of the strangest and most unsettling aspects of your new life. Historians call it the master-servant relationship, a complex social dynamic of dependence and distance. From your perspective, it just feels profoundly lonely. You are in an intimate space, witnessing a family's private morning ritual, yet you are utterly separate from it. You are there, but you are not there. An odd piece of etiquette you have to learn is about serving sides. You must always serve from the left. Why the left? The precise origin of this rule is a point of minor academic debate, with some suggesting it was to leave the guest's right hand free for their wine glass, while others argue it was simply a way of standardizing service to prevent chaos with multiple servants. Whatever the reason, it is a rule as unbreakable as the laws of physics. Approaching a guest from the right is a social crime of the highest order. So you watch, you wait, you anticipate. You see the master gesture vaguely towards the kidney dish. The footman catches the signal and with a subtle nod indicates that you should serve him. Your heart leaps into your throat. You pick up the heavy silver dish, a hot pad protecting your hand, and you approach him from the left, your movements stiff with nervousness. You hold the dish steady as he serves himself. You don't look at his face, you look at his plate. You retreat, your legs feeling shaky. You did it. You didn't spill anything. You didn't do it from the wrong side. It's a small, absurd triumph, but it feels momentous. You wonder what they talk about, these people from another universe. Their concerns seem to be about things you can barely imagine. A forthcoming ball, a trip to the theatre, a disappointing dividend from some investment. Your own concerns are more immediate. The ache in your back, the rumbling in your empty stomach, the ever-present fear of making a mistake. You are standing in a warm, comfortable room, surrounded by the smell of delicious food, yet you are starving. It's a peculiar kind of torture. After what feels like an eternity, the meal is over. The family rises and leaves the room, still without a word or a glance in your direction. The moment the door closes, the atmosphere changes. The footman allows himself a small sigh. You and the other maids can finally relax your rigid postures. But there is no time to rest. Now you must clear everything away, and the whole cycle of work begins again. The dining room must be tidied, the dishes must be carried back down to the scullery, where a mountain of greasy plates and silver awaits. For the family, breakfast is over. For you, breakfast is just beginning its long, laborious journey back to cleanliness. Once the debris from the family's breakfast has been cleared and carried down to the scullery to await Sarah's tired hands, you are summoned by a sharp, single-note bell. This is not a summons from the family upstairs, but a command from within your own world. It is the bell of the butler, and it means you are wanted in his pantry. The butler's pantry is his office, his sanctuary, and his seat of power. It is a small room, usually located between the dining room and the kitchen, and it is meticulously organized. The air in here smells of silver polish, old wine, and authority. This is the domain of Mr. Carson, or whatever his name may be, the undisputed king of the below-stairs staff. If the cook rules the kitchen, the butler rules everything else. He is the master's most trusted servant, responsible for the household accounts, the wine cellar, the male staff, and the overall smooth running of the house. He is more than a servant. He is a manager, a disciplinarian, and a figure of immense and intimidating prestige. Your interview with him, on your first day, was more terrifying than your meeting with the master of the house himself. You stand before his desk, hands clasped behind your back, eyes downcast. "Girl," he says, without looking up from the large ledger he is writing in. He doesn't use your name. To him, you are your role. The silver. It needs polishing. All of it. He gestures with his pen towards a large wooden chest. Inside, nestled in green baize lining, is the family's silver collection. Not the everyday cutlery you handled at breakfast, but the grand formal silver used for dinner parties, enormous serving platters, ornate candelabras, fish knives, soup tureens, and a bewildering array of forks and spoons for purposes you can't even guess. It is a treasure trove of wealth, and it is now your responsibility to make it shine. The butler's trust is a heavy burden. A single scratch, a dent, a piece gone missing. It would be a catastrophe for which you would be held solely responsible. This is a test. Your performance on this task will determine your reputation in his eyes. He provides you with the tools for the job, several soft chamois cloths, a brush for intricate patterns, and a pot of polishing paste, often called rouge. This pinkish, clay-based paste is gently abrasive. You take the first piece, a large, heavy serving fork, and begin. It is painstaking, repetitive work. You apply a small amount of the paste and rub and rub and rub. The tarnish, a blackish film that dulls the silver, slowly gives way to a bright, almost liquid gleam. You have to get into every crevice of the ornate patterns, using the small brush to work the polish into the grooves. Then you must buff it with a clean cloth until it shines with a mirror-like finish, leaving no residue or smears. It's another one of those quiet, solitary jobs that fill your day. As you work, you're under the butler's watchful eye. He doesn't stare at you, but you can feel his presence, his silent judgment of your technique. You wonder about him. How does one become a butler? Historians trace the role back centuries, a position of immense trust and responsibility. Most butlers worked their way up, starting as a hallboy or footman, and spending decades learning the craft of household management. They were career professionals, often more knowledgeable about etiquette and fine wine than the masters they served. They inhabited a strange middle ground, possessing great power over their fellow servants, but still being servants themselves. An odd aspect of this job is learning the language of the silver. Each piece has a name and a specific purpose. There are bouillon spoons, marrow scoops, grape shears, and asparagus tongs. It's a secret vocabulary of dining that feels both absurd and deeply serious. You learn that a fish knife is never, ever used for meat, and that a dessert spoon is a different size from a soup spoon. Misplacing one or cleaning it improperly is not just a practical error, it's a social one. It's a sign that the household is not being run to the highest standards. The pressure is immense. You focus on the rhythm of the work. Apply, rub, buff, apply, rub, buff. Your fingerprints are all over the polished surface, so the final touch is a careful wipe with a clean chamois, holding the piece by its very edge. You place the finished fork carefully back in its baize-lined slot and pick up the next piece. There are dozens. This will take hours. You might be wondering if you ever got to use any of this finery. The answer is an emphatic no. The servants ate their meals in the servants' hall, a plain, functional room in the basement. They used simple, sturdy cutlery, often tin or pewter, and thick earthenware plates. The contrast between the silver you are polishing and the fork you will use for your own midday meal is a constant, tangible reminder of the chasm that separates your world from theirs. This is the great upstairs, downstairs divide, a social structure as rigid and as load-bearing as the house's foundations. You are part of the machinery that creates the luxury, but you are never a recipient of it. Your reward is your wage, a pitifully small sum, your board and your lodging. And the privilege, if you can call it that, of handling objects of immense beauty and value that you will never own. You finish a candelabra, its multiple arms twisting and gleaming. It's heavy and awkward to handle. You can picture it on the dining table, its candles lit, casting a warm, flickering glow on the faces of the family and their guests. You, of course, will not be there. You will be back down here, in the basement, scrubbing the pots they dirtied. It's a strange intimacy, to be so responsible for the props of a life you only ever get to witness from the wings. The butler finally speaks, his voice startling you. See that it is all done by luncheon. The master is expecting guests this evening. He says it without emotion, a simple statement of fact. For him, it's a matter of logistics. For you, it's a race against time, another mountain to climb in a day already full of them. With the silver finally polished to the butler's exacting standards and your hands aching from the repetitive motion, you are released from the confines of the pantry. But there is no respite. The housekeeper, Mrs. Bailey, is waiting for you. She is a thin, severe woman who seems to glide rather than walk, her black dress rustling with an authority that rivals the butler's. While he manages the male staff and the public face of the house, she is the absolute ruler of the female staff and the private domestic sphere. Her domain is the linen closet, the bedrooms, the general state of cleanliness, and the moral conduct of the maids under her charge. She has a ledger, just like the butler, but hers tracks pillowcases and tablecloths instead of wine bottles. To a housekeeper, a missing sheet is a crime worthy of investigation, and a poorly made bed is a personal insult. She beckons you to follow her, and you begin a tour of inspection. This is her way of showing you, the new girl, exactly what her standards are. It is, in a word, terrifying. You follow her up the main staircase, the one you are usually forbidden to use. Walking on the thick, soft carpet is a strange sensation after the hard stone and bare wood of the servants' quarters. The walls are covered in silk wallpaper and hung with large, oil-painted portraits of stern-faced ancestors. The air is warmer up here and smells of beeswax and potpourri. It is another world. You are acutely conscious of your plain uniform, of the faint smell of soot and polish that clings to you. You feel like a crow in a cage of doves. Mrs. Bailey points to a microscopic smudge on a polished banister. "What is this?" she asks, her voice dangerously quiet. You can't even see it until she points it out. I expect to see my reflection in this wood, girl. My reflection, not your carelessness. You murmur an apology, your face burning with shame. This is the essence of your job, striving for a perfection that is, by its very nature, unattainable. There will always be another smudge, another speck of dust. She leads you into the drawing room, the grandest space in the house. Sunlight streams through the tall, immaculately clean windows, illuminating the results of your morning's frantic dusting. You had thought it looked clean. You were wrong. The housekeeper sees things that are invisible to the normal human eye. She runs a gloved finger over a lampshade, showing you a faint trace of dust. She points out a cushion on the sofa that has not been plumped to its maximum possible volume. She adjusts a picture frame by a fraction of an inch. Each correction is a silent criticism, a mark against you in her mental ledger. You trail in her wake, a miserable student learning a lesson in inadequacy. It is through these inspections that you get your most powerful glimpse of the life the family leads. You see their books, left open on a side table. You see the sheet music on the piano, the invitations tucked into the frame of the mantelpiece mirror. It is a life of leisure, of art, of social engagements. It is a life utterly alien to your own. Historians often talk about the civilizing mission of the Victorian middle and upper classes, a belief that they were setting a moral and cultural standard for the rest of society. This house is the physical embodiment of that belief. Every object is a statement of taste, wealth, and status, and your job is to maintain the illusion that this elegance is effortless. The reality, of course, is that it is built on a foundation of your sweat and drudgery, and that of a dozen other servants. An interesting and often debated aspect of this world is the complex emotional and psychological space the servants occupied. They were privy to the most intimate details of the family's life, their arguments, their illnesses, their secrets, yet they were expected to have no thoughts or feelings about it themselves. They were meant to be unthinking, unfeeling extensions of the house itself. But of course, they were human. They formed opinions, they gossiped, they judged. The servants' hall was a hotbed of whispered commentary on the family's doings. Who was courting whom? The master's bad temper after a poor day in the city, the mistress's lavish spending on new gowns. To know everything, and to have to pretend you know nothing, was a constant psychological strain. The housekeeper leads you to the linen closet. This is her pride and joy. It is a large walk-in room, cedar-lined to repel moths, with floor-to-ceiling shelves. On these shelves are stacks of linen, all perfectly white, perfectly ironed, and perfectly folded. There are sheets, pillowcases, tablecloths, napkins, and towels of every size. Each stack is tied with a lavender-scented ribbon and labelled. It is a monument to order and domestic perfection. On Mondays we wash, she says, her voice echoing slightly in the pristine room. On Tuesdays we iron. Nothing is to be put away until it is aired and checked for repairs. A single tear, a single loose thread, and it comes to me. Do you understand? You nod, mesmerized by the sheer, obsessive order of it all. An odd but common feature you'd find in such a closet is a mangle. This wasn't for washing, but for pressing large flat items like sheets and tablecloths. It was a machine with two large rollers in a heavy frame, operated by a hand crank. Feeding a sheet through a mangle was heavy work and required two people, but it produced a smooth, crisp finish that was impossible to achieve with a simple hand iron. You get the feeling you'll be spending a lot of time with the mangle next Tuesday. For now, you just stare at the mountain of perfect linen, a symbol of the work that awaits you. It's a stark visual representation of the Sisyphus-like nature of your job. This linen is currently clean, but soon it will be used, dirtied, and sent down to the laundry to be washed, starched, mangled, ironed, and returned to this very shelf, only to begin the cycle anew. Your work is never, ever done. True to the housekeeper's word, Monday is a day unlike any other. Monday is laundry day, and it is universally dreaded by every servant in the house. It is a descent into a special kind of domestic hell, a world of steam, sweat, and caustic chemicals. The laundry is usually located in a separate outbuilding or in the deepest, most remote part of the basement, for good reason. The process is noisy, smelly, and creates a vast amount of steam and dampness that you wouldn't want anywhere near the main house. Your day starts even earlier than usual because the fires for the laundry's copper must be lit at the crack of dawn. The copper is a huge metal cauldron, bricked into its own furnace, used for boiling the water and the laundry itself. You haul the coal, you light the fire, and you begin the back-breaking task of filling it with water, bucket by bucket. It takes an incredible amount of water and an incredible amount of time to heat. Once the water is hot, the sorting begins. The sheer volume of laundry produced by a wealthy Victorian family is staggering. There are the family's clothes, from the master's heavy suits to the mistress's delicate lace-trimmed chemises. There are the children's clothes, invariably stained with mud and jam. And then there is the household linen, the mountain of sheets, pillowcases, tablecloths, and napkins you saw in the linen closet. It all has to be sorted into piles, whites, colours, woolens, fine fabrics. A mistake here could be disastrous. A single red sock accidentally washed with the white sheets could turn everything a delicate shade of pink, a crime for which you would certainly be dismissed. The whites are tackled first. They are plunged into the boiling water in the copper, stirred with a long wooden stick that looks like a giant paddle. The soap used isn't a gentle, perfumed detergent. It is a harsh, yellow bar soap made with lye, or sometimes lye is added directly to the water. Lye is sodium hydroxide, a powerful alkali that is great for removing dirt, but brutal on both fabrics and skin. Your hands will be raw and red by the end of the day. After being boiled, the laundry is transferred to huge wooden tubs for washing. This is where the real physical labor begins. You use a dolly, a wooden plunger with a long handle and a set of legs at the bottom, to pound and agitate the clothes in the hot, soapy water. Or you use a washboard, a corrugated panel of wood or zinc, to scrub the fabric by hand. It's relentless, exhausting work, performed in a room thick with steam that makes it hard to breathe. The stone floor is slick with water, and your clothes are soaked through within the first hour. You can't imagine how women did this week after week, year after year. The strain on your back, your arms, and your hands is immense. Historians studying women's health in the 19th century often point to laundry work as a major cause of chronic pain and respiratory problems. You are living that historical data, and it is every bit as miserable as it sounds. Once an item is scrubbed clean, it must be rinsed, not once, but several times, in progressively cleaner water to get all the soap and lye out. For the whites, there is an extra, rather odd step, the addition of laundry blue. This was a small cake, or bag of synthetic ultramarine, or indigo dye. It was stirred into the final rinse water. It didn't make the whites cleaner, but it counteracted any yellowing in the fabric, making them appear brighter and whiter to the eye. It's a fascinating bit of applied color theory in the middle of all this drudgery, a chemical trick to achieve the high standards of whiteness the housekeeper demands. A little too much blue, however, and you'd leave a faint blue tinge on the clothes, another cardinal sin. It was a fine line to walk. Then comes the wringing. For smaller items, you do this by hand, twisting the fabric with all your might to squeeze out the excess water. For larger items like sheets and tablecloths, you use a mangle. This is the heavy, two-rollered machine you saw near the linen closet. It requires two maids to operate, one to feed the wet, heavy linen carefully between the rollers, and the other to turn the heavy iron crank handle that brings the rollers together. It is incredibly hard work, and dangerous too. Getting a finger caught between those powerful rollers could mean a crushed or even severed digit. Safety features were minimal to non-existent. You learned to work with a careful, steady rhythm, your arms screaming with the effort of turning the crank. Finally, the laundry must be hung up to dry. In good weather, this is done outside in a designated drying yard, on long lines propped up with wooden poles. In the frequent rain and fog of a London winter, however, it must be done inside, in a special drying room fitted with heated racks. This just adds to the humidity and heat of the laundry area, making the atmosphere even more oppressive. The entire day is spent in this steamy, chaotic environment. There is no break for lunch. You might grab a piece of bread and cheese to eat while standing, but the work does not stop. Monday is a write-off, a day sacrificed to the god of cleanliness. As you finally finish, your body screaming with exhaustion, you look at the baskets of damp, clean laundry, and you know that tomorrow will be spent ironing it all. The work is never, ever done. Tuesday arrives, and with it, a mountain of damp, clean laundry. If Monday was the hell of wet heat, Tuesday is the hell of dry heat. Welcome to ironing day. The kitchen range is fired up to maximum capacity, not for cooking, but to heat the irons. There are no electric irons with convenient temperature controls. You have sadirons, also known as flat irons. These are solid blocks of cast iron with a handle, and you have several of them. You place them directly on the hot surface of the range to heat up. The trick is knowing when they are at the right temperature. Too cool, and they won't smooth out the creases. Too hot, and they will scorch the fabric, leaving a dreaded brown mark that could cost you your job. The tried and true method for testing the heat is to spit on the base of the iron. If the spittle sizzles and evaporates aggressively, it's too hot. If it just sits there, it's too cool. If it dances and disappears in a satisfying hiss, it's just right. It's a crude but effective technique you have to learn quickly. You set up your ironing station, a long, sturdy wooden table covered with a thick blanket and a white cotton sheet. You work your way through the baskets of laundry, starting with the simple, flat items like handkerchiefs and napkins, and working your way up to the more complex garments. Ironing a simple pillowcase is straightforward enough. Ironing one of the master's shirts, however, is a complex piece of fabric engineering. You have to do the collar, then the cuffs, then the sleeves, then the front panels, then the back, all in a specific order to avoid creating new creases as you work. The mistress's dresses, with their ruffles, pleats, and lace inserts, are a nightmare. They require smaller, specialized irons with pointed tips to get into the intricate details. You are on your feet for hours, the heat from the irons radiating into your face, your arm aching from the weight of the heavy iron. Your attention cannot wander for a second. A moment's distraction could lead to a scorched shirt or a ruined dress. The pressure is relentless. While you are absorbed in this purgatory of pleats and collars, you become more aware of one of the household's most peculiar residents, the governess. You see her occasionally, a quiet figure drifting through the upstairs hallways or walking with the children in the garden. She is a strange and lonely figure in the social ecosystem of the house. She is not family. She eats her meals alone in the schoolroom, after the children but before the servants. She is not truly a servant either. She is a lady by birth and education, but forced by poverty to work for a living. This puts her in a state of social limbo. The other servants, like you, often eye her with a mixture of pity and suspicion. She is part of the upstairs world in her manners and speech, but she is paid a wage, just like you. Historians who study the lives of governesses describe them as occupying a threshold position, belonging fully to neither the family's world nor the servants'. They were often isolated, lonely figures, tasked with imparting a ladylike education to their charges, while being constantly reminded of their own dependent and inferior status. You might catch a glimpse of her in the schoolroom as you hurry past on an errand. It's a bright, airy room on one of the upper floors, filled with books, maps, and a large globe. You might hear her patiently explaining a French verb or correcting a piano scale. It seems like a gentle, intellectual life compared to your own world of scrubbing and polishing. But you also see the strain in her face, the quiet sadness in her eyes. The children can be cruel, exploiting her ambiguous authority. The mistress can be demanding, treating her as little more than a high-class nursemaid. the master might ignore her existence entirely. Her position is precarious. Any perceived failure in her duties, any hint of familiarity with the male staff, or even just the fact that her charges are growing up, could lead to her dismissal. And for a gentlewoman with no family and no fortune, dismissal is a terrifying prospect, leading to a life of genteel poverty, or, worse, the dreaded path of becoming a paid companion. An interesting aspect of the governess's life was her wardrobe. Unlike you, with your practical provided uniform, she was expected to maintain the appearance of a lady on a very small salary. This meant being skilled with a needle, constantly mending, remaking, and refreshing a limited number of dresses to keep up appearances. Her clothes had to be respectable and sober, greys, browns, dark blues, to signal her serious professional status and to avoid any suggestion of frivolity or, heaven forbid, competition with the mistress of the house. Her entire existence is a carefully managed performance of respectability. You are both young women in this house, earning a wage, your futures dependent on the whims of your employers, but your paths will never cross. The social gulf between a housemaid and a governess is as wide and unbridgeable as the one between you and the mistress. You might feel a flicker of kinship, a shared sense of being trapped, but it's a feeling you would never dare to express. You are on opposite sides of the invisible but powerful line that divides the house. She belongs to the world of quiet corridors, piano lessons, and lonely meals. You belong to the world of clanging pots, steaming laundries, and the silent, watchful corners of every room. You turn your attention back to the shirt on your ironing board, the hiss of the hot iron your only companion. The world of the lonely governess is a mystery, just one more of the many secrets this great house keeps. The week grinds on. After the twin ordeals of washing and ironing, the rest of the week is dedicated to a deeper, more specialized cleaning routine. Wednesday might be for polishing the floors, Thursday for cleaning the silver and brass, Friday for turning out one of the bedrooms for a top-to-bottom scrub. The days blur into a cycle of repetitive tasks, a rhythm of labor that is both exhausting and, in a strange way, predictable. You are finding your place in the household machinery. You know which stairs creak, which taps drip, which of the bells corresponds to which room. You are learning the unspoken rules, the delicate dance of hierarchy in the servants' hall. You know to keep your opinions to yourself, to work hard, and to stay out of the way. You feel a fragile sense of security beginning to form. And then, one afternoon, it all shatters. It begins with a quiet but urgent summons. You, along with all the other female servants, are told to assemble in the morning room. The housekeeper, Mrs. Bailey, stands before you, her face grimmer than usual. The butler stands beside her, his expression a mask of stern disapproval. Even the mistress of the house is there, a rare and alarming sight in the world below stairs. She is standing by the fireplace, tapping an impatient finger on the mantelpiece, her face a thundercloud of displeasure. A cold knot of fear tightens in your stomach. An assembly like this can only mean one thing: trouble. A brooch is missing, the mistress announces, her voice sharp and brittle. A small gold brooch with a sapphire stone. I left it on my dressing table this morning. It is no longer there. She pauses, letting her words hang in the air. The silence in the room is absolute, thick with tension. It has not walked away. One of you has taken it. Her eyes sweep across the line of servants, a silent accusation that falls on each of you equally. You stand there, your heart hammering against your ribs. You try to keep your face perfectly still, to show no emotion. But inside, you are panicking. You were in the mistress's bedroom this morning. You dusted that very dressing table. Your mind races, replaying your every move. Did you accidentally knock it? Could it have fallen? Did you sweep it into a dustpan without noticing? The alternative is unthinkable, that one of your fellow servants is a thief, or even worse, that they will think it was you, the new girl with no history, no one to vouch for her character. An accusation of theft is the most serious charge that can be leveled against a servant. It means instant dismissal without a reference. And without a reference, no other respectable household will ever hire you. It is a sentence to poverty, to the workhouse, or to the streets. The interrogation begins. The butler and housekeeper go down the line, questioning each maid one by one. When were you in the mistress's room? Did you see the brooch? Did you see anyone else near the dressing table? The questions are sharp, relentless. Each girl denies it, her voice trembling. The atmosphere grows thicker with suspicion and fear. Friendships and alliances forged in the servants' hall dissolve in an instant. Everyone is a suspect. Everyone is looking at everyone else, wondering. Is it Sarah, who is always complaining about her low wages? Is it Jane, whose mother is sick and needs money for a doctor? Is it you? Historians who study crime and justice in the Victorian era note that servants were often the first and most convenient suspects for any household theft. They had access, they were often poor, and they had little power to defend themselves against an accusation from their employer. The legal system was heavily weighted in favor of the master. A servant's word against a master's was worth almost nothing. Then comes the most humiliating part. "We will be searching your rooms and your belongings," the butler announces, his voice cold. You are to be escorted one by one back up to the attic. The housekeeper herself will conduct the search. The invasion of privacy is total, a complete violation of the tiny scrap of personal space you have in this house. You wait your turn, your mind numb with dread. What if she finds the small coin your mother gave you? Will they think you stole it? You have nothing to hide, but the very act of being searched makes you feel like a criminal. When your turn comes, you follow Mrs. Bailey up the winding stairs to your attic room. She is silent, her lips pressed into a thin line. You stand by the door as she systematically goes through your few, meager possessions. She opens your small wooden box, shaking out your spare apron and cap. She runs her hands under your thin mattress. She even checks inside your shoes. The search is thorough and degrading. Of course, she finds nothing. But the absence of evidence is not proof of innocence. The suspicion remains, a poisonous cloud that will linger over the house for days. The brooch is never found. Perhaps the mistress simply misplaced it. Perhaps it will turn up weeks later in the pocket of a dress. But it doesn't matter. The damage is done. The trust between master and servant, already so fragile, is broken. The trust between the servants themselves is poisoned. You return to your duties, but everything feels different. The house seems to watch you, its silence full of judgment. You feel the other maid's eyes on you, the whispers that stop when you enter a room. Was it her? The new one? It's a harsh lesson in the precariousness of your existence. Your character, your honesty, your entire future can be destroyed in an instant by a misplaced trinket and a powerful person's suspicion. An odd and rather cynical piece of advice often given to new servants was to immediately report any money or valuables they found, even a single penny on the floor. To pick it up was to risk being accused of having stolen it. It was a world where the presumption of guilt was the default setting for anyone in your position. The days following the brooch incident are tense and miserable. The easy, if weary, camaraderie of the servants' hall has been replaced by a strained silence and sideways glances. You try to make yourself even more invisible, to perform your duties so perfectly that no fault can possibly be found with you. You scrub harder, polish more diligently, and move through the house like a nervous shadow. And through it all, punctuating the tension and driving the rhythm of your anxious days, is the constant, inescapable sound of the bells. The tyranny of the bell system is one of the defining features of your life as a servant. On a large board in the kitchen or the butler's pantry is a row of small bells, each connected by a complex system of wires and pulleys to a bell pull in one of the rooms upstairs. When a member of the family pulls the cord, a bell in the kitchen rings, and a small painted flap drops down to indicate which room is summoning you. It is the house's voice, and it is a demanding, impatient one. The bells can ring at any time, for any reason. They will ring in the morning to signal that the family is awake and requires hot water to be brought up for their morning ablutions. They will ring to summon you to serve meals and to clear them away. They will ring in the afternoon when the mistress wants tea. They will ring in the evening when the master wants the fire in the study built up, or when he has dropped his newspaper and can't be bothered to bend down and pick it up himself. The sound of that jangling bell becomes the soundtrack to your existence, an auditory leash that keeps you tethered to your duties. There is no ignoring it. A bell must be answered, and answered promptly. To be slow in responding is a serious offence, implying disrespect and laziness. So, the moment a bell rings, you must drop whatever you are doing, whether you are halfway through scrubbing a floor or about to snatch a rare moment to sit down, and hurry to answer the call. It's a system that historians see as a key technological innovation in household management, allowing for a new level of control and instant service. For the family, it created a sense of effortless command over their environment. For the servants, it created a state of constant, on-call anxiety. You can never fully relax. Your mind is always half listening for that sharp, metallic jangle. Is it my bell? Am I needed? The sheer number of journeys up and down the stairs is staggering. A single bell could mean a 4-story climb from the basement kitchen to an upper bedroom, only to be asked to perform a trivial task like closing a window or fetching a book. Then you must walk all the way back down again. The physical toll of this constant movement is immense. Your legs ache perpetually. Your feet are always sore. It's no wonder that housemaid's knee, a painful condition caused by kneeling, was so common. But housemaid's staircase leg should have been a recognized ailment too. An odd and little-known aspect of these bell systems is their maintenance. The intricate network of wires and pulleys that ran through the walls and under the floorboards of the entire house was prone to breaking. A wire could snap, a pulley could jam. Repairing it was a specialist job, often requiring a man to come and pull up floorboards or drill into walls. This meant that in many households, there was at least one bell that didn't work properly. This could lead to a special kind of hell for the servants. The family might be furiously pulling on a bell pull in the drawing room, growing angrier by the second at being ignored, while downstairs, the bell remains stubbornly silent. The eventual discovery of the lazy servant's failure to appear would lead to a furious reprimand, and no amount of explanation about the broken bell would be believed. It would be seen as just another excuse. You learn to hate the sound of the bells, to dread it. It represents the complete lack of control you have over your own time and your own body. You are not a person with a list of tasks to complete. You are a resource to be summoned at will. You are, in essence, a human extension of the bell pull itself. You are the hands that fetch, the feet that carry, the body that appears as if by magic when summoned. You find yourself wondering about the psychology of it all. Does the family even think about the person who answers the bell? Do they register that their simple desire for a glass of water requires another human being to stop their work, climb 3 flights of stairs, fetch the water, bring it to them, and then walk all the way back down again? Or is the process so seamless, so ingrained, that the servant becomes invisible, a mere function of the house itself? The answer seems to be the latter. You are not a person. You are a presence, a service, a response to a stimulus. The bell rings, and you appear. It is the fundamental equation of your life in this house. The sound, more than anything else, is what defines your servitude. It's a constant reminder that your time is not your own, and your life is lived at the beck and call of others. In the relentless, grinding routine of your week, there is one small, shimmering beacon of hope, your half-day off. This is a privilege, not a right, and it can be taken away for any infraction. For most servants, it occurs once a week, usually on a weekday afternoon, when the family is less likely to require a full staff. From 3 o'clock until 10 o'clock in the evening, your time is your own. The anticipation of these few hours of freedom is almost painful. It's the only thing that makes the drudgery of the rest of the week bearable. When the day finally arrives, you finish your luncheon duties with a frantic burst of energy, then rush up to your attic room to change out of your uniform, putting on your own dress, a simple, well-worn garment you brought with you from home. Feels like a magical transformation. For a few hours, you are not a housemaid. You are yourself again. Your freedom, however, is not absolute. You are expected to be back in the house by 10 o'clock sharp. To be late is a grave offense, raising suspicions about your moral character and activities. You are also given strict instructions by the housekeeper about where you can and cannot go. Certain parts of the city, known for their taverns and music halls, are strictly off-limits. You are representing the household, even on your time off, and your conduct must be beyond reproach. But even with these restrictions, the feeling of walking out of the front door, or more accurately, the servant's entrance at the back, is intoxicating. The City of London assaults your senses. It's a chaotic, bewildering and thrilling place. The streets are crowded with people of every class and description. The air is thick with the smell of horse manure, roasting chestnuts, coal smoke and river damp. The noise is a constant cacophony of horses' hooves on cobblestones, the rumble of omnibuses, the cries of street vendors, and the chatter of 1,000 conversations. After the enforced silence and order of the house, this vibrant chaos is both overwhelming and wonderful. What do you do with this precious, fleeting freedom? Your options are limited by your tiny wage. You have a few pennies to your name, so lavish entertainments are out of the question. For many servants, the half-day is a time for practical errands. You might need to go to a draper's shop to buy a new ribbon for your cap or a spool of thread to mend your stockings. These small purchases feel like major luxuries. Sometimes, you might meet up with a friend, perhaps a girl you know from your home village, who is in service at another house nearby. You can walk in one of the public parks, like Hyde Park or Regent's Park. Here, you can watch the fashionable ladies and gentlemen parade in their fine clothes, riding in elegant carriages. It's like watching a play, a glimpse into a world of wealth and leisure that is utterly separate from your own. Historians often discuss the public parks of London as one of the few truly democratic spaces in the city where people of all classes could mingle, at least visually. For you, it's a chance to feel like part of the city, not just a hidden cog in one of its grand houses. An odd but popular pastime, if you could afford the penny or two for admission, was visiting a cemetery. Highgate Cemetery, with its grand, Gothic tombs and winding, overgrown paths, was a popular destination for strollers. It sounds morbid to us, but in the Victorian era, cemeteries were treated like parks, places for quiet contemplation and fresh air, away from the smog and grime of the inner city. It was a form of sentimental tourism, a chance to reflect on life and mortality in a beautiful, curated setting. It offered a kind of peace and quiet that was impossible to find anywhere else in your life. It's a strange choice for a day off, but perhaps the quiet company of the dead was a relief after the demanding company of the living. More often than not, though, you simply walk. You wander the streets, looking in the shop windows. The displays are a source of endless fascination. Confectioners with elaborate sugar sculptures, butchers with prize-winning carcasses hanging on display, bookshops with rows of leather-bound volumes. It is a world of abundance and consumption that you can observe but not participate in. Your most likely indulgence is to buy a hot pie or some roasted chestnuts from a street vendor. The simple act of buying your own food, of choosing what you want to eat, is a small but powerful act of independence. You eat it as you walk, savoring every bite. It tastes of freedom. But the clock is always ticking. As evening begins to fall and the gas lamps are lit, casting a warm but eerie glow on the streets, you know you must start heading back. You see the city change its character, the theatres and pubs coming to life. This is the part of the city you are forbidden from, the world of nighttime entertainment and potential moral danger. You hurry back through the darkening streets, your brief escape coming to an end. You slip back in through the servant's entrance, arriving with minutes to spare. You change back into your uniform, the coarse fabric feeling like a cage after the freedom of your own clothes. The half day is over. It has to sustain you for another week of bells, dust, and servitude. It feels like a dream that has ended too soon, leaving you back in the cold, hard reality of your life. In the close, confined world of the servants' quarters, where dozens of young men and women live and work in close proximity, it is inevitable that attachments will form. Despite the long hours, the strict supervision, and the unwritten rules against fraternizing, romance below stairs is a persistent and powerful force. It blossoms in stolen glances across the servants' hall, in whispered conversations in a darkened corridor, in the brief moment of contact as a plate is passed from a footman to a housemaid. For you, it begins with one of the footmen, a young man named Thomas. He is tall and has a kind smile, and unlike the other, more senior servants who barely acknowledge your existence, he sometimes says a quiet "good morning" or helps you lift a particularly heavy scuttle of coal. These small kindnesses feel like shafts of sunlight in your grey world. A relationship between servants is a dangerous and complicated affair. It must be conducted in the utmost secrecy. The housekeeper and the butler have a zero-tolerance policy for dalliances among the staff. It is seen as a distraction from work, a threat to the smooth running of the household, and, most importantly, a danger to the moral character of the house. A maid discovered to be in a relationship could be dismissed instantly, especially if there was any hint of impropriety. The fear of pregnancy is a constant, terrifying shadow. A pregnant housemaid would be cast out without a second thought, facing a future of shame, poverty, and the workhouse. Her partner might face dismissal too, but the consequences for the woman were always far more severe. So your courtship, if you can call it that, is a thing of whispers and secrets. You leave notes for each other in hidden places, tucked inside a dusty book in the library, or slipped under a loose floorboard on the back stairs. You might contrive to be in the same place at the same time, sharing a fleeting, charged moment while polishing the brass in the main hall. The risk involved makes every stolen glance, every brief touch of hands, incredibly precious and intense. The servants' hall, after the family has retired for the night, is the main social hub. Here, over a supper of bread, cheese, and weak beer, the staff can finally relax a little. It's a time for gossip, for complaining about the day's work, and for a bit of laughter. It is in this brief period of communal life that you and Thomas can exchange a few words, under the watchful eyes of the senior servants. You talk about your homes, your families, the lives you left behind. You discover that you are both from the countryside, that you both miss the green fields and the open sky. In this shared nostalgia, you find a powerful connection, a sense of being understood in a world where you are usually invisible. He makes you laugh, a genuine, unguarded laugh, a sound you realize you haven't made since you arrived in this house. It feels like a small act of rebellion. Historians often debate the true nature and extent of these below-stairs relationships. Some contemporary accounts, often written by moralizing reformers, portray the servants' quarters as hotbeds of immorality. But personal letters and diaries from servants themselves often paint a different picture, one of genuine affection, courtship, and a desire for marriage and a life of their own. For many servants, the ultimate goal was to save enough money to be able to leave service, get married, and set up their own small home. This dream of a future beyond the endless bells and drudgery is what sustains you. You and Thomas talk about it in hushed tones during your rare moments alone. A small cottage, perhaps, a garden, a life where you are your own masters. It is a fragile, distant dream, but it gives you hope. It transforms your labor from mere servitude into a means to an end. An odd and rather unromantic consideration in any potential match between servants was practicality. A footman's prospects were considered better than, say, a hall boy's. A cook, with her skills, was a very desirable match. A valet who travelled with the master and received perks and cast-off clothing was a great catch. Romance was often tempered with a strong dose of pragmatism. A good match could be a ticket out of the relentless grind of the lower echelons of service. Your affection for Thomas is genuine, but you are not blind to the fact that as a footman, he is on a path that could, one day, lead to him becoming a butler, a position of security and prestige. This practical undercurrent doesn't make the romance less real. It just grounds it in the harsh realities of your world. The relationship is a source of immense happiness, but also of constant anxiety. You live in fear of being discovered. A misplaced note, a lingering glance noticed by the housekeeper, a bit of gossip from a jealous fellow servant. Any of these could lead to disaster. The house has eyes and ears everywhere. The very architecture, with its separate staircases and corridors, is designed to keep you apart, to enforce the strict hierarchy. Your love affair is a direct challenge to that order. It is a small, personal rebellion against the rigid social structure that governs your life. It is a declaration that even here, in the cold, oppressive heart of this grand house, you are still human. You still have a heart that can love, a spirit that can hope, and a dream of a life that is truly your own. Whether that dream can ever survive in this environment is a question that haunts your every waking moment. The secret romance with Thomas is a source of light in your life, but it also casts a long shadow. The fear of discovery is constant, and with it, the fear of the ultimate consequence, dismissal. This isn't just about losing your job, it's about losing everything. Your wage, your bed, your food, your only foothold in the world. And the destination for a servant cast out without a reference is a place that haunts the Victorian imagination like a waking nightmare, the workhouse. The shadow of the workhouse looms over every person in your position. It is the ultimate symbol of failure and destitution, a place of last resort for the poor, the old, the sick, and the unemployed. You've heard stories about it your whole life, tales told in hushed, fearful tones. It is a place designed not to comfort, but to deter. The principle behind the New Poor Law of 1834, which established the union workhouses, was that of less eligibility. This meant that conditions inside the workhouse had to be deliberately worse than the conditions of the lowest paid independent labourer outside. It was meant to be a place people would do anything to avoid. You see the results of this system every day. You see the desperate faces of the poor on the streets, the beggars, the match sellers, the men and women whose luck has run out. You know that you are only a few paychecks, or one angry employer, away from joining them. This fear is a powerful tool of control. It's why you tolerate the long hours, the harsh treatment, the lack of freedom. The alternative is infinitely worse. Your entire life is a tightrope walk over a chasm of utter poverty, and the workhouse is at the bottom. What would actually happen if you were dismissed? First, you would be told to pack your small box of belongings and be out of the house within the hour. The finality would be brutal. The door of the house that has been your entire world would be closed to you forever. You would be on the street, alone in the vast, indifferent city of London. Your few pennies of savings wouldn't last long. You would have nowhere to sleep, nowhere to go. The workhouse itself was an institution built on principles of discipline, degradation, and hard labor. Upon entry, families were torn apart. Husbands were sent to one wing, wives to another, children to a third. You might never see your loved ones again, even if you were living under the same roof. Your personal clothes would be taken from you, and you'd be forced to wear a rough, humiliating uniform that marked you as a pauper. The food was meager and monotonous, gruel, bread, and watery soup. The work was deliberately tedious and punishing. Men might be tasked with breaking stones or picking oakum, unraveling old, tarred ropes, a painful job that shredded your fingers. Women would be put to work in the laundry or the kitchens, a cruel parody of the domestic service they had failed to keep. Silence was often enforced during meals and work. The goal was to crush the spirit, to make the experience so demoralizing that you would take any job, no matter how awful, to get out. Historians continue to debate the social impact of the workhouse system. Proponents argued that it reduced the cost of poor relief and encouraged self-reliance. Critics, then and now, point to its inhumanity, the way it punished poverty as if it were a crime. For you, the academic debate is irrelevant. The workhouse is a real and terrifying prospect. It represents the loss of identity, of family, of freedom, of hope. It is the end of the road. An odd and particularly cruel aspect of the system was the pauper's funeral. If you died in the workhouse, you would be buried in an unmarked, communal grave, often in a cheap, flimsy coffin. It was the ultimate indignity, a final erasure of your existence from the world. This fear of a nameless, forgotten death was a powerful motivator to stay in service, no matter the cost. So you work. You keep your head down. You swallow your pride when the housekeeper scolds you for a trivial mistake. You bite your tongue when you feel unjustly treated. You are extra careful in your secret meetings with Thomas, knowing that a moment of carelessness could doom not just you, but him as well. The fear of the workhouse is a constant, cold presence in the back of your mind. It makes you a better, more obedient servant. You understand now that the entire system of domestic service is built not just on the luxury of the masters, but on the desperation of the servants. Your dependency is their power. Your fear is their security. It's a harsh, unforgiving equation, but it is the fundamental truth of your world. The grand house, with its polished silver and warm fires, can feel like a prison. But you know, with a certainty that chills you to the bone, that the world outside that prison can be far, far worse. As the year draws to a close, a strange, almost festive energy begins to permeate the house. The family is preparing for Christmas. For them, this means a flurry of social engagements, the purchasing of expensive gifts, and the planning of a lavish Christmas Day feast. For the servants, it means one thing: more work. Much, much more work. The house must be decorated. Huge boughs of holly, ivy, and mistletoe are brought in, and it is your job, along with the other junior maids, to hang them from picture rails and chandeliers. The prickly holly scratches your hands, and you are constantly up and down on rickety stepladders. A new tradition, imported from Germany by Prince Albert, is becoming fashionable: the Christmas tree. A huge fir tree is brought into the drawing room, and you have to help decorate it with candles, ribbons, and small, delicate glass ornaments. The candles are a particular fire hazard, and you are given strict instructions to have buckets of water and sand ready whenever they are lit. The number of fires to be lit and maintained multiplies, as every room must be kept warm and cheerful. The amount of cooking becomes truly gargantuan. Mrs. Higgins, the cook, is in a state of controlled frenzy for weeks, preparing mince pies, Christmas puddings, and a glazed ham. The smells wafting from the kitchen are incredible, a rich, spicy aroma that fills the entire basement. You are run off your feet with extra errands, fetching ingredients, polishing extra silver for the Christmas dinner, and washing a seemingly infinite number of mixing bowls and roasting tins. The bells ring more often than ever as the family hosts a stream of visitors for afternoon tea and evening drinks. You are constantly running up and down the stairs, your legs aching, your head spinning with the sheer volume of tasks. This is not the restful, joyful Christmas of songs and stories. This is Christmas as a logistical marathon, and you are one of the exhausted runners. But there is a small reward for all this extra labor. On Christmas Day itself, after the family has eaten their enormous multi-course dinner, the servants are permitted to have their own celebration. This is a moment of carefully managed generosity from the master and mistress. They might make a formal appearance in the servants' hall, the master saying a few benevolent words and wishing everyone a happy Christmas. It's an awkward, stilted affair, a brief crack in the rigid wall that separates your two worlds. The family's presence is a reminder that even this celebration is happening at their discretion. They might also give out small gifts or Christmas boxes. This was a long-standing tradition. For a housemaid like you, this might be a length of fabric to make a new dress, a pair of warm gloves, or perhaps even a small coin. It's not much, but it is a welcome token. The real highlight, however, is the servants' Christmas dinner. For one night, you get to eat like the masters, or at least a slightly less grand version of it. The plain wooden table in the servants' hall is covered with a tablecloth. The cook will have prepared a roast goose or a large joint of beef with roasted potatoes and all the trimmings. There is Christmas pudding, drenched in brandy and set alight, a moment of real spectacle and excitement. There is ale to drink, and sometimes even a little wine. For this one meal, the strict hierarchy of the servants' hall is relaxed. The butler might carve the roast, and the housekeeper might serve the vegetables. There is laughter and singing, and a genuine, if temporary, sense of community and celebration. You get to sit down and eat a hot, plentiful meal, a luxury you don't often get to enjoy. You might even get to sit near Thomas and exchange a happy, hopeful glance across the table. An odd and rather telling detail of the servants' Christmas is what happened with the leftovers from the family's feast. While some of the grander dishes might make their way down to the servants' hall, many of the finest delicacies did not. The remains of the turkey, the expensive jellies, the elaborate desserts, these were often sold off by the cook or the butler. This was a common perk or perquisite of the senior staff, a way of supplementing their income that was generally tolerated by the employers, as long as it wasn't too blatant. Historians see this as part of the complex, informal economy of the great houses. For you, it's just another reminder of the pecking order. Even in celebration, there are levels and hierarchies. After the meal, there might be games, or even a little music, if one of the footmen can play a fiddle or a concertina. The celebration doesn't last long. The fires still need to be tended, and the washing up from 2 massive dinners awaits you in the scullery. But for a few short hours, the grim reality of your life is held at bay. You are warm, you are full, and you are surrounded by people who understand your life because they are living it too. It's a small, flickering candle of joy in the long, dark winter of your servitude, and you cherish it. The brief warmth of the Christmas celebration fades quickly, and the house settles into the cold, damp gloom of the new year. This is often the unhealthiest time of year. The cold weather, the constant dampness of the basement where you work, and the physical exhaustion from your relentless duties all take their toll on your body. Sickness is a constant threat in the servants' quarters, and falling ill is a luxury you simply cannot afford. There is no such thing as paid sick leave. If you are too sick to work, you are a burden on the household. A minor cold or a cough, like the one your attic roommate Jane seems to have constantly, is usually ignored. You are expected to work through it. But a more serious illness, a fever, or an infection that leaves you bedridden is a cause for panic. Your position, your very survival, is at stake. One morning, you wake up feeling dizzy and weak. Your head is pounding, your throat is raw, and your body aches with a deep, penetrating chill. You try to get up, but a wave of nausea forces you back down onto your lumpy mattress. You have a fever. Sarah, the scullery maid, looks at you with a mixture of pity and fear. "You'd best not let Mrs. Bailey see you like this," she whispers, before hurrying off to start her day. You know she is right. To admit to being truly sick is to admit to being useless. You force yourself to your feet, your legs trembling, and somehow manage to get into your uniform. You make your way downstairs, clinging to the wall for support. Every step is an agony. The day ahead of you, with its endless stairs, heavy buckets, and constant activity, seems like an impossible mountain to climb. The medical care available to servants is minimal at best. A doctor would only be called for a member of the family. For a servant, the first line of defense is the housekeeper, who often fancies herself an amateur physician. Her medical cabinet is likely stocked with a terrifying array of Victorian cure-alls and quack remedies. For your fever, she might give you a dose of James's powder, a popular patent medicine containing antimony and phosphate of lime, which was essentially a poison that caused profuse sweating. Or perhaps she'd offer you a black draught, a vile-tasting laxative made of senna and magnesium sulfate, on the general principle that purging the system was the answer to most ailments. Historians studying the history of medicine have a field day with these patent remedies, which were aggressively marketed and made wild, unsubstantiated claims. They were often useless at best and dangerous at worst. An odd but common belief at the time was that illness was often a sign of moral failing as much as a physical one. Laziness, poor hygiene, or even bad thoughts were thought to make one susceptible to disease. Therefore, when a servant fell ill, there was often an underlying suspicion that it was their own fault. This meant that there was very little sympathy to be had. You were expected to recover quickly and quietly, without causing any fuss or disruption to the household routine. If your illness persists for more than a day or two, the housekeeper's patience will wear thin. The mistress of the house will start to complain about the work not being done. A decision will have to be made. If you are lucky, they might allow you to rest in your attic room for a few days, your fellow servants grudgingly bringing you scraps of food and water when they can. But they will do so with a sense of resentment, as your absence means more work for them. If you are not lucky, or if your illness is deemed too serious or potentially contagious, you will be sent away. They might send you back to your family in the country, if you have one to go to, effectively firing you in your moment of greatest need. Or, in a worst-case scenario, they would call a carriage to take you to the fever hospital or the workhouse infirmary. These institutions were overcrowded, understaffed, and had terrifyingly high mortality rates. To be sent to one was often seen as a death sentence. You struggle through your day in a feverish haze. You drop a plate in the scullery, earning a sharp reprimand from the cook. You move slowly, your body screaming in protest. Every task feels monumental. The fear of being found out, of being sent away, is a more powerful stimulant than any of Mrs. Bailey's powders. You know you have to keep going, to hide your weakness, to pretend you are well. Your health is not your own. Like your time and your labor, it belongs to the house. Your well-being is secondary to the smooth functioning of the household machine. It is a brutal calculation, but it is the reality of your situation. You are replaceable. The work is not. As you slowly recover from your illness, proving your resilience and your value through sheer force of will, your status in the house begins to subtly shift. You are no longer the new girl. You have survived your first few months. You have learned the routines, and you have proven yourself to be a hard worker. This doesn't mean your life gets any easier, but you do begin to earn a small degree of trust from the senior staff. This trust leads to new responsibilities. One day, the mistress's personal maid, a haughty French woman named Mademoiselle Dubois, falls ill with a real, undeniable sickness that even she cannot work through. The housekeeper, in a pinch, assigns you to help with some of her duties. This is a major step up. The lady's maid is at the apex of the female servant's hierarchy. She is the closest to the mistress, a position that comes with immense prestige, better pay, and significant perks, but also unique pressures. Your new duties take you into the inner sanctum of the house, the mistress's bedroom and her private dressing room, or boudoir. This is a world of incredible luxury. The air smells of expensive French perfume and scented soaps. The wardrobes are filled with a breathtaking array of silk, satin, and velvet dresses. The dressing table is a glittering landscape of silver-backed brushes, crystal perfume bottles, and intricate tortoiseshell combs. Your first task is to help the mistress dress. This is a far cry from pulling on your own simple cotton uniform. A wealthy Victorian lady's attire is a complex, multi-layered construction, and she cannot put it on by herself. It starts with the undergarments, a chemise, drawers, then the corset. The corset is the formidable foundation of the entire silhouette. It is your job to lace it and to pull the laces tight, very tight. The mistress will tell you when to stop, her breath held, her hands gripping the bedpost for support. The ideal is a tiny waist, achieved at the cost of compressed ribs and squashed internal organs. It seems a bizarre form of self-torture, but it is the height of fashion. After the corset comes the corset cover, a bustle cage to support the back of the skirt, multiple petticoats to give the skirt volume, and then finally, the dress itself, which might have a bodice with dozens of tiny, intricate buttons that you must fasten with a button hook. It is an engineering project as much as an outfit. While you perform these intimate tasks, you must maintain a perfect demeanor, quiet, efficient, and utterly discreet. The lady's maid is the keeper of her mistress's secrets. She sees her without her makeup, without her perfect coiffure, without the rigid armor of her corset. She knows about the mistress's moods, her insecurities, her vanity. She might overhear private conversations with the master or read the letters left on her desk. To betray any of this knowledge, to gossip about what you see and hear in the boudoir, would be the ultimate professional suicide. A significant and rather odd part of your new role involves hair. The elaborate hairstyles of the era often required more hair than a woman naturally possessed. This is where hairpieces, or rats, came in. These were pads made of horsehair, or, more commonly, the mistress's own hair collected from her brush each day. This collected hair would be saved, cleaned, and woven into pads that could be used to bulk out an updo, creating the fashionable, voluminous styles seen in portraits. Part of your job would be to brush the mistress's long hair, the famous 100 strokes before bed, and to carefully collect the loose strands for this purpose. You also have to be skilled at hairdressing, able to create intricate braids, curls, and plaits. You learn by watching Mademoiselle Dubois and by practicing on a wooden dummy head in your spare moments. You also become responsible for the care of the mistress's vast and expensive wardrobe. You are expected to be an expert in stain removal, using various concoctions of chemicals like ammonia, borax, or even gasoline to treat spots on delicate fabrics. You must press her dresses before each wearing, sponge, and air them after, and perform any necessary repairs, restitching a seam, reattaching a piece of lace, tightening a loose button. You are part curator, part conservator of a museum of textiles. Historians studying fashion and material culture rely on the preservation of such garments, and it was the unseen work of ladies' maids that ensured these clothes survived. The relationship between a mistress and her maid is one of the most complex in the entire household. It can be incredibly intimate, and yet the class divide is always present. The mistress might confide in you, treat you as a trusted confidant, but you are still her servant. She can be kind one moment and imperious the next. You learn to be a psychologist, a diplomat, and a silent repository of secrets. It is a stressful, demanding role, but it offers a glimpse into a world of power and privilege that few other servants ever see. You are closer to the heart of the house than ever before, but you are also more aware than ever of the invisible, unbreakable glass wall that separates you from it. Just as you are beginning to adapt to the new routines and the strange intimacy of serving as a temporary lady's maid, the entire household is thrown into a new level of high gear. The family is preparing for the London season. The season is the annual period, from roughly late spring to midsummer, when the elite of British society congregate in London for a relentless marathon of social events, balls, dinner parties, and political manoeuvring. For the aristocracy and the wealthy upper classes, it is the peak of the social calendar, a time for cementing status, arranging marriages, and being seen in all the right places. For the servants, it is a period of unrelenting, back-breaking work that makes the ordinary daily grind look like a holiday. The house, which you thought was already clean, must now be made immaculately, surgically clean. A spring cleaning of epic proportions is undertaken. Every carpet is taken up, hung outside, and beaten to within an inch of its life. Every curtain is taken down and washed. Every piece of furniture is moved, and the walls and floors scrubbed behind it. You discover new kinds of dirt in places you didn't know existed. The family begins to entertain on a massive scale. Instead of a small family dinner, there are now formal dinner parties for 20 or 30 guests several times a week. The amount of food to be prepared, served, and cleared away is staggering. The scullery becomes a war zone of greasy pots and pans. You and the other maids are roped into helping, your hands permanently wrinkled from the hot water. You are constantly running up and down the stairs, carrying heavy trays, fetching forgotten items, and trying to remain invisible while the house buzzes with guests in their finest clothes and jewels. Sleep becomes a distant memory. You are up before dawn to begin the preparations, and you don't get to bed until the last guest has departed, sometimes well after midnight. Then you have to clear up the detritus of the party before you can finally collapse into your bed for a few short hours, only to start the entire process again the next day. As the temporary lady's maid, you are at the heart of the storm. The mistress has multiple engagements in a single day: a morning reception, an afternoon tea, a grand ball in the evening, and requires a different, equally elaborate outfit for each one. Your days are a frantic cycle of dressing and undressing her, of pressing gowns, preparing accessories, and styling her hair. The pressure to ensure she looks perfect is immense. A single wrinkle in her skirt or a stray hair could be a source of social embarrassment for her, and a source of deep trouble for you. You learn to work with incredible speed and precision, your hands flying as you manage the complex layers of her clothing. You become an expert at quick changes, a backstage dresser for a one-woman show. An interesting and often overlooked aspect of the season was the logistics of travel. The family would be constantly moving around London in their carriage. The coachman and the footmen would be working just as hard as the indoor staff. But even a simple trip to the opera required preparation from you. You would have to pack a small bag for the mistress with her fan, her opera glasses, a fresh pair of gloves, and perhaps a small vial of smelling salts in case the drama on stage, or in the society boxes, became too much. The great balls are the pinnacle of the season and the ultimate test of the household's efficiency. When the family hosts a ball, the house is transformed. The furniture in the drawing room is removed. The floor is polished to a slippery sheen for dancing, and the entire house is decorated with flowers. An orchestra is hired. Outside, caterers might be brought in to supplement the kitchen staff, adding to the chaos below stairs. You and every other servant are on duty for the entire night. Some maids are tasked with cloakroom duty, taking the guests' heavy coats and wraps. Others are stationed to help lady guests with any wardrobe malfunctions in a designated powder room. Your job is to remain on call for the mistress, ready to fix her hair or adjust her gown at a moment's notice. You might be allowed to catch a glimpse of the ball from a hidden vantage point, perhaps through a crack in a door on an upper landing. You see a swirling kaleidoscope of color and light, hear the beautiful music of the waltz, and watch the smiling, laughing faces of the dancers. It is a magical, enchanting world, and you are separated from it by an unbridgeable gulf. You are the invisible machinery that makes the magic happen. Historians see the London season as a crucial social ritual, a marriage market where alliances were forged and dynasties secured. For you, it's just a blur of exhaustion. You feel more like a machine than a person, a cog in a great glittering engine of social ambition. The season pushes you to the very limits of your physical and mental endurance. By the time it finally ends, and the family departs for the country to recover from their social exertions, a kind of exhausted peace descends on the house. The work returns to its normal, merely crushing level. You have survived. You have proven your worth under the most intense pressure. You may even have earned a grudging nod of approval from the housekeeper, but the experience leaves its mark on you. It has shown you the peak of the world your masters inhabit, in all its glittering, demanding, and ultimately heartless glory. The years begin to blur together, marked not by your own life events, but by the family's rhythm. The London season in the spring, a trip to the seaside in the summer, the return to the country for the autumn shoots, and Christmas in the city. You are no longer a young girl. The constant work has hardened your body, but it has also taken a toll. There's a permanent ache in your lower back. Your knees creak when you climb the stairs, and your hands are rough and callous despite your best efforts. You have risen through the ranks. After Mademoiselle Dubois finally retired, the mistress, pleased with your quiet efficiency and discretion, offered you the permanent position of lady's maid. It is the best job a woman can hope for in domestic service. You have your own, slightly larger room, not in the attic with the junior maids, but on the same floor as the housekeeper. Your wages are significantly better, and you receive the mistress's cast-off clothing, which you can adapt for yourself or sell for a little extra money. You have security, of a sort. But as you enter your 30s and then your 40s, a new anxiety begins to creep in. What does the future hold? Your secret courtship with Thomas, the footman, ended years ago. His ambition led him to a better position in a grander house, and the practicalities of a servant's life, with its lack of freedom and opportunity, made marriage impossible. You have watched other maids leave service to get married, sometimes with a small dowry from a grateful master, but that path seems to have passed you by. You are now what the world calls a career servant. Your life is the house. Your identity is your job. This is a common story. Many women, especially those in the higher-ranking positions like lady's maid or housekeeper, remain single their entire lives. Their dedication to their work and the all-encompassing nature of the job left little room for a personal life. You begin to think about old age. There is no such thing as a pension plan or a retirement fund for domestic servants. Your future is entirely dependent on the goodwill of your employers. If you are lucky and have served a family faithfully for decades, they might keep you on in a less demanding role as you grow older. A lady's maid might transition to the role of housekeeper, a position that relies more on experience and authority than on physical strength. But this is not guaranteed. What if the master dies and the estate is broken up? What if the family falls on hard times and has to reduce their staff? What if the mistress you have served your whole life passes away and the new lady of the house wants to bring in her own maid? Your position is never truly secure. It rests on a foundation of personal loyalty, which can be a fragile thing. An odd and rather sad feature of many large houses was the presence of elderly, retired servants living on sufferance. They might be given a small room, their meals, and a few light duties, living out their final years as pensioners of the family they had served. Historians debate whether this was an act of genuine charity or a way for the family to demonstrate their own paternalistic benevolence. For the servant, it meant a life of continued dependency, a ghost at the feast of the family's life. The alternative was grim. If you were dismissed in your old age, with no family to take you in, your savings would be your only resource. And saving money on a servant's wage, even the higher wage of a lady's maid, was incredibly difficult. An unexpected illness, a need to send money home to a struggling relative, these could wipe out your savings in an instant. The workhouse, the spectre that haunted your youth, returns as a very real possibility for your old age. You see it happening to others. You see the housekeeper, Mrs. Bailey, beginning to slow down, her sharp eyes missing a detail they would have caught a decade ago. You see the worry in her face as she contemplates her own future. You see the toll the years of service have taken on the older servants, their bodies stooped, their faces etched with a permanent weariness. You have sacrificed your youth, your health, and the chance for a family of your own to this house, to this family. You have been loyal, discreet, and hard-working. But what do you have to show for it? A room to sleep in, a wage, and a collection of secrets that are not your own. You have a skill, a profession, but it is one that has no value outside the closed world of the great houses. The thought is a cold stone in the pit of your stomach. You have polished the silver, lit the fires, and smoothed the path for another family's life, and in doing so, you have neglected to build a life of your own. The future, once a distant country of vague hopes, is now a nearby land, and it looks quiet and lonely and frighteningly uncertain. The world outside the tall windows of the grand house is changing. The 19th century is drawing to a close, and a new era is dawning. You hear snippets of it in the newspapers you handle, in the conversations you overhear. There are new inventions: the telephone, the motor car, the kinematograph. The cities are growing, and with them, new opportunities for women. Factories, shops, and offices are all beginning to offer alternative forms of employment. For a young girl starting out, domestic service is no longer the only, or even the most attractive, option. The pay is better in a factory, the hours are fixed, and when your work is done, your time is your own. The number of people willing to go into service begins to decline, a trend that social historians see as the beginning of the end for the great houses. From within the house, however, life remains stubbornly, almost defiantly, the same. The bells still ring, the fires still need to be lit, and the endless war on dust continues. The rituals and routines that have governed your entire adult life are performed with the same unwavering precision. But you can feel a subtle shift, a sense of an era beginning to fade. The mistress complains that it's harder to find good, obedient maids. The younger girls who are hired seem more restless, less willing to accept the rigid discipline and confinement of the life. They have ambitions beyond the walls of the house. You, a veteran of the old guard, find yourself becoming like the housekeepers you once feared, tutting at their modern ways and their lack of deference. You have been so thoroughly institutionalized that you cannot imagine another way of life. The house has become your world, its rules your own. An interesting development you witness is the slow, grudging introduction of new, labor-saving technologies. A gas geyser might be installed to provide hot water, reducing the reliance on the kitchen range's boiler. Or, most revolutionary of all, the master might decide to have the house wired for electricity. This is a massive undertaking, and it is viewed with deep suspicion by both the family and the older staff. The bare, glaring light of an electric bulb seems harsh and ugly compared to the soft, flickering glow of gaslight and candles. It is also unforgiving, revealing every last speck of dust and every tiny imperfection in the furniture and decor. It makes your job of cleaning even harder, because there is nowhere for the dirt to hide. The most significant new invention, the vacuum cleaner, is still a few years away from being a common household item. For now, you are still fighting dust with tea leaves and a broom. You are growing old in service. Your hair is streaked with grey. Your movements are slower, more deliberate. The mistress you have served for so long is now an old woman herself, frail and often forgetful. Your relationship has deepened into a kind of codependent companionship. You are her memory, her hands, her constant, steady presence. You know her needs before she does. It is a comfortable, if constrained, existence. But you are living in a gilded cage that is slowly beginning to rust. The great London mansions are becoming dinosaurs, too large and expensive to run in a changing world. After the Great War, which is still a decade in the future but will shatter this world forever, high taxes and a lack of staff will force many aristocratic families to sell up or downsize. The age of the great household, with its army of servants, is coming to an end. You won't see the final collapse, but you are living in the twilight, the gaslight's last gleam. You stand at the window of the mistress's boudoir, looking out at the street below. You see a motor car chug past, frightening a horse and carriage. It is a symbol of the new century, a noisy, fast, and disruptive force. The house behind you, with its silent corridors and its rigid formal etiquette, feels like a relic from another time. Your life has been spent in service to this fading world. Historians will later debate the legacy of this system. Was it a benevolent, paternalistic structure that provided food and shelter for millions? Or was it an exploitative system that thrived on cheap labor and the suppression of individual freedom? For you, it is not a debate. It was simply your life. It was the cold attic room, the heat of the laundry, the weight of the coal scuttle, the sting of the housekeeper's reprimand, the fear of the workhouse, and the brief stolen moments of joy in the servants' hall. It was the life you were given, the path you walked. You turn from the window back to the quiet, familiar room and go to tend to the fire. It is what you have always done. It is what you will continue to do until the last embers fade. The house settles around you, its rhythms as familiar as your own breathing. The day's work is finally done, the last of the embers in the downstairs grates glowing softly before they too turn to ash. You make your way slowly up the many stairs, not to the cramped attic of your youth, but to your own small, quiet room, a space earned through a lifetime of silent, tireless effort. The sounds of the house are muted here, the distant rumble of the city, a low, constant hum that has been the soundtrack to your entire adult life. The sharp edges of your anxieties have softened over the years, replaced by a deep, abiding weariness and a sense of resignation. The grand, tumultuous story of the house, with all its dramas and its demands, is quieting now, both for the night and for the era. The world will continue to spin and to change, to invent and to discard, but your small corner of it has found a kind of stillness. You can finally let the weight of the day, and of all the days that came before it, settle and dissolve into the quiet dark. There are no more bells to answer tonight. There is nothing more required of you. There is only the gentle pull of sleep, a well-earned rest at the close of a long, long day. End of story. Sweet dreams.